We begin the Gemara today towards the bottom of Daf Mem Aleph Amud Beis, about 10 lines up from the bottom of the Yamud where it says Tanu Rabbanan. This is connected to what we learned in the Mishnah, that when it comes to a woman that's getting remarried, so you have to wait 3 months until you can get remarried. Tanu Rabbanan, so we learned in the Braise. Yevamos, so this Yevamos Shloisha Chadashim Arishainim, for the first 3 months after her husband passed away, Nizainis Mishal Baal, she's fed from the possessions, from the money of her husband that died. This is based on what it says in the Ksubah, as Rashi here brings, that when he passes away, so Rashi brings in the Ksubah, it's written, Tehei Yesvana, Bebeisi, Metzana, Menichsi, Koyemi, Megar, Malusech. As long as you're an almana, you'll be fed from my money. So she's also fed, but over here, it's only the first 3 months. But Mikam ve'elech, after the first 3 months, Einon Izainis, she will not be fed, Loi Mishal Baal, not from the money of her husband that died, and also v'lo mishal yavam. And she also will not be fed from the yavam that she's destined to get married to, or to do chalitza from him, and it was not done yet. As Rashi explains, the reason is, in this case, she's not going to be fed from her husband, even though a usual wife gets fed from her husband all the time that she remains an almana, because over there, she can say the reason why I'm not getting remarried to anybody is because of my husband, out of honor of my husband that passed away. But over here, she's not getting remarried to anybody, not because of the honor of her husband, but because al pitaita, she can't. She has to get married to the yavam. So after 3 months, now the yavam has the ability to be miyavim her, so then let the yavam go ahead and be miyavim her. So it's not anymore the responsibility to take the money from the husband that passed away. On the other hand, though, if the yavam was not miyavim her yet, she does not get any money from him because he didn't marry her yet. Omad Bedin, if she went to Bezdin and she demanded from her Yavam to be Miyavim her or to do Chalitze, Ubarach, and he didn't do either, he just ran away, then Izainis Mishal Yavam. Then she will be fed from the Yavam. And Rashi here says the reason is this is a knas. Because Bezdin said that he has to do Yivim for her and he didn't do either, he ran away, it's a knas. Other Rishonim say this is not because of a knas, but it's simply like the halacha that there is regarding a person that is ma'aris, a woman, the first stage of marriage, sets a date for the marriage, for the nisuin. From that date, even if they didn't end up actually getting married on that date, he has to begin feeding her from that date. It's a Gemara in Ksubas. Similar over here, because he brought him to Bezdin already, and he's supposed to marry her from this point forward, or give her chalitza. So if he doesn't follow through, he still has to start feeding her from that point forward. Frek the Gemara. Now the shaila will be nafla lefnei yivum katan, yavam katan, that is. If she fell for yibum, but now this yavam is a katan and she has to wait for the katan to become bar mitzvah to do yivum for her. So miyavam lesla. So from the yavam, she definitely does not get fed from him. She can't marry him. He's still a katan, so for sure she doesn't get fed from him. The question is, mi baal mai, does she get fed from her husband? Do we say that it's still the husband's responsibility? It's not yet a point where she can say that, well, she could get married to the yavam, and therefore it's not the husband's responsibility anymore. No, this yavam is a katan, so therefore at this point it still is the husband's responsibility. Or maybe not. Maybe because there is a yavam here, even though he's a katan now, but had he been a gadol, she would be getting married to him. So since she's not just a regular almana that is not getting married to anybody because of her husband, but because there's a yavam here that she's waiting for, so maybe after 3 months, it's not anymore the husband's responsibility. So pligiba Ravache v'Ravina. In this case, Ravache and Ravina argued. Chad Amar, one of them said, Isla. Then in such a case, he takish still gets from her husband. She's not getting married to the Yavam. He's a katan. It's not at all because the Yavam already has the ability to do the mitzvah, so therefore the husband still has to feed her. V'chadamar lesla. Other one said that no, even over here when the Yavam is a katan, after 3 months, she does not get anything from the husband's possessions anymore, and not from the Yavam either, obviously. V'hilchase. In this machlokes, the halacha is lesla, she does not get from her husband after 3 months. Mishmaya konsua. This is like a knas from heaven. The fact that she falls for a yavam and therefore she's destined to get married to him. So after 3 months, the Eibusher says, look, it's your bad luck that this yavam is a katan and you're going to have to now wait extra time. But it's not anymore the husband's responsibility since she really is waiting to get married to this yavam. Tanu Rabbanan, in Abraisi we learned, Yevamos, Shecholtzala achim b'toich shloisha. A Yevama, that one of the brothers did chalitza for her within 3 months. So we actually learned before in the Mishnah, it said that chalitza you're also supposed to wait after 3 months. But b'di'evet, if chalitza was done within 3 months, and b'di'evet, so Tosfos says from here you see that b'di'evet, that chalitza takes effect, tzricha lahamtin shloisha chadashim. So she has to wait 3 months to go and get married. La'acha gimel. So this is if the chalitza was done within 3 months. So she has to wait until after 3 months from when her husband passed away. La'acha gimel. If the chalitza was done after 3 months of her husband passing away, she does not have to wait anymore. She doesn't have to wait another 3 months from when the chalitza was done. Havei. So this teaches me hagimel chadashim shamru. When it said in the Mishnah that she has to wait 3 months, mishas misas habal. That's from when her husband passed away. V'loi mishas chalitza sayavam. She does not have to wait 3 months from after the yavam did chalitza to get remarried. Fragt the Gemara, ma'ishnami get. Why would this be different from the halacha that there is by a get? So by a get also there's 2 stages. This from when the time the get is written. From that point she doesn't have any relations with her husband anymore. And then there's the time when he actually gave her the get and the gedushin, the divorce takes effect. So over there there's a machlokes. The Rav says mishas nesina. You have to wait 3 months from when the time of the get was given. Shmuel amar mishas ksiva. And Shmuel says you only wait 3 months from when the time was written. So Shmuel's opinion is understood because from when the time the get was written, she had no relations with her husband anymore. So you wait from then 3 months. But Rav says that no, you still have to wait from the time when the divorce takes effect, when the divorce was given to her. So why don't we say the same thing over here? Even though the husband already died before, but you should wait 3 months from when the chalitza is done. Says the Gemara over here is different. Amarave kavachaymer. Over here we have a kavachaymer to learn from the halacha itself regarding a yavama that has to wait. Isekaris, when it comes to an isekaris, in other words, by every yavam, what's the halacha? That she has to wait 3 months because we're afraid that maybe she's pregnant, and if she'd get married to her husband's brother, there would be a isekaris. So hitarta, so you matter 3 months after her husband passes away, so she can go and get married to the brother. So that's the 3 months is enough to be matter isekaris from after the husband passed away. Isser lav lekol shekain. Over here, where after the chalitza there's an isser of a lav to get married, that she's not allowed to go get married to anybody if the chalitza wasn't proper, didn't take effect. So over here, for sure, we're going to say that we don't wait any longer than we wait for the isser kares. So over here, regarding Yevama, there's a specific kavachayme that we have from the isser kares to isser lav. That's why over here you only wait the 3 months, just like it is by the isser kares from when the husband passes away. Not any longer. Then it said in the Mishnah, V'chein shar kol anoshim, similar, all other women that are getting remarried, they have to wait 3 months. So the reason why Yevama has to wait 3 months, like we explained, because you have to be sure that she's not pregnant, that there's actually a mitzvah of Yibum here. Ela shar kol anoshim, but all other women that are getting remarried, amai. Why do they have to wait? Rav Nachman on Shmuel. So Rav Nachman said in the name of Shmuel, reason is there's a pasuk that says, Li is l'chol elikim, the Eibush is your God, ulizaracha acharecha, and for your descendants after you. What this means is lahafchin ben zareh shel rishon lezareh shel sheni, that we wait to see, to be able to distinguish between, to know the yichus, so the children from the first marriage, children from the next marriage, because as Rashi says, the Shechina only dwells on the children, on Yidden that are miyuchis, that we know where they come from. So therefore you have to wait to determine the child that's born, if it's from the first marriage or the second marriage. Rav asks in this, Lafichach, it says in the Braisa that Allah is a ger v'giyoides, that also a ger and giyoides, that a ger and giyoides, that they're married to one another. And now, after they become Gedim or Giyoides, they have to wait 3 months until they can have relations again. So we're talking about one person married to his wife, but after they become converted, they have to wait 3 months. So why do they have to wait? It's the same person. You know, what is it that you have to distinguish between a first marriage or a second marriage? So usually we want to know the yichus, we want to know who the father is, but over here it's the same father, the same mother. So why would you have to wait before the Gedus or after the Gedus? So the Gemara gives 2 answers. One answer the Gemara says is Hochanami ikelahavchin ben zera shenizra b'kedusha lezera shalei nizra b'kedusha. Here as well, we wait to determine, to know the child that's born, was he born from a relation before they converted. So it's a child that's born from before, so you have to be megayed her, you have to know or him, the child that's born. Or is the child born after the Gedus already took effect? So that's also important to distinguish. Rav Omar, but Rav gives a different answer, and Rav Bechlal gives a whole different reason why by every woman when she gets remarried she has to wait 3 months. Gzeira, because here there's a gzeira, if you don't wait and you don't know the proper yichus, so then there's many different issues that can come up, which is as follows. One is Shema Yisa Sachoy Semi Aviv. Maybe he could end up marrying a sister and that they share the same father. This person doesn't know that he shares the same father with this woman. His mother was married to another man. Now he got married a second time. He thinks that his father's from the second marriage, but really his father's from the first marriage. And he end up going and getting married to this girl that was born from that man that was the first marriage, and he's really a son from the first marriage. So you have to wait to know if he's from the first marriage or the second marriage. Or another mistake could happen. V'yavim eishis achiv me'imai. Or maybe he could end up being miyavim, his brother's wife, and really he thinks that this is his brother, that they share the same father. But really they don't share the same father. Really they just share the same mother. Again, because if it's not going to be clear if he comes from the first husband or the second husband, so he might think that they share the same father, but really they don't. And in such a case, it's a issakaris if they're not brothers that share the same father. Or another mistake that could happen is v'yoytzi es imoy l'shuk, that this person could end up patterning his mother to be able to go get married to anybody. In other words, this child is born, and you think that this child is born here from the second marriage, and this is the father. So the father had a child. So if he dies, so then the mother doesn't need any yibum. Here's a child that was born, and really he's not even a child of this man that died. He's a child from a previous marriage, and this man died without any children. So the mother needs chalitza or yibum, and because we think it's from the second marriage, we're going to patter her to go get married to whoever she wants. And also, v'yiftoir es yivimtoir l'shuk. Another thing that could happen is he could be pattering a yevama that she should be able to go marry l'shuk. Which means, what happens if there's a case where you have a person that's born, let's say, from the first marriage. And as far as we know, there's no other brother that was born from the first marriage. So if there is no brother from the first marriage, so even if that child that's born from the first marriage got married and died without children, but now his wife will not need to do any yivim chalitza, because there's no brother to do yivim chalitza. So she can go get married to whoever she wants. But what's the truth? The truth is that now there is a brother here. We think this brother was born from the second marriage. So we think there's no brother. But really there is. That brother that was born, we think from the second marriage, really was born from the first marriage. So therefore, if we're confusing this, we might think that there's no brother to do yibum, and we'll patter the mother to go out l'shuk when really he is a brother. So therefore, in all these cases, there could be a problem over here. And Rashi says that it's also regarding the ger and the giyaydis as well. So there's also the issue of a person would be miyavim eishes achiv me'imai, because if you have brothers and one was born before the Gedus and one was born after the Gedus, so because one is before and one is after, the yichus by both of them, they're not considered to be yichus that they share the same father. Rashi actually says, because the one that's born before the Gedus, we don't know who the father is. B'chlal, she could have been mezana and she got married to someone else, so they don't share the same father, b'chlal. And they think they're brothers. And then if one dies without children, he thinks he can do yibum. But really they just share the same mother, but not the same father. So therefore, that's why it said before in the Braisa that even by a ger and geyaydis, you have to wait 3 months to be clear to know exactly if this is a child from before or after the Gedus. Mos of Rav Chananya asked on this pshat of Rav, it says in the Braisa, Bekulon ani koire ben mishum takonis erve. All of these cases that we mentioned, that Chachamim asked for her to get married or to do yibum, you have to wait 3 months. The reason is because we don't want this woman to have a relation with someone that's an erva. But vikan mishum takonas vlad. Over here when it says, when Chachamim said that every woman that's coming to get remarried has to wait 3 months, so this is not a takana that we're concerned about an erva, but it's a takanas vlad. What's the pshat of takanas vlad? So the way Rav Chananya understands this is, takanas vlad would be like what we said before, that we want to know the yichus of the child. That's what takanas vlad is, but we're not concerned about any isser of erva taking place. But if what Rav said is true, that there's a gzeira, that we're concerned about all these different scenarios of arayis that can happen here, so kulu mishum takanas erva. So not only in the cases that we had before, that we said by a Yevamos, for example, that has to wait until she can get married to her Yavam, because maybe It's a issa erva for her. We don't know if she's pregnant or not. But even all other women, the chachamim will geiz that she can't get married for 3 months, it's also an issue of an erva, like Rava had explained. So why does it say that it's only mishum takanas vlad? So again, the Gemara's question is, v'misa kula mishum takanas erva? All of them are takanas erva. So the Gemara explains, no, there's a difference. Hi, mishum takanas vlad leilivka behu erva. What the Braisa means to say is, yeah, you're right. Like we could say, like Rav said, that there is a takanas erva, and the takanas vlad is also an issue of an erva. The difference is, by a yevama, when she can't get married to her yavam, it's because we're afraid that she is getting married to an erva. We don't know if she's pregnant or not. When it comes to a regular woman that's going to get married, for her getting remarried right away, we're not concerned that she's going to be getting married to an erva, but we're concerned that the vlad born might come out the issa erva. So when it says vlad, it also means erva, but it just means that there will be a concern about a issa erva coming out only for the vlad and not for this woman herself. Okay, now the Gemara will explain exactly this time that we said, that you wait for 3 months. What exactly is the reason to wait 3 months and not any less than that? Fragt the Gemara, it's understood, tamtim beis chadoshim v'tinase. If you'll say that she only waits 2 months, and then she gets remarried, that's not going to work. The hainus fake, because then you're going to get into the exact doubt that we have over here regarding the child that's born. Ibar tisha lekama, is this child that's born 9 months after the second marriage, is it really born from 9 months of pregnancy from the previous marriage? Because it was only a 2-month break, so maybe she was still born from the previous marriage. Ibar shiva lebasra, or maybe it's a child born from after the 7 months of the second marriage. Okay? So again, what we're talking about over here is that this is 9 months from when the first marriage ended, then there was a 2-month break, and then there's 7 months from the second marriage. So now this is exactly what there would be a big problem in. We don't know if it's 9 months from the first marriage or 7 months from the second marriage. So that, we understand, is not an option. Elo, however, tamtin chodesh echad v'tinase. Why can't we say that you should wait 1 month between the first and second marriage and let her get married? Then we'll say as follows: V'ile shiva yolda. If the baby is born after 7 months, so then we know hai bar shiva lebasrahu. So if it's 7 months after the second marriage, we know that it's 7 months from the second marriage. V'letmanya yolda, and if the child is born 8 months after the second marriage, so then hai bar tisha lekamahu. So then we know that it must be that this is 9 months from the previous marriage. Why? Because a child is not born after 8 months. So it must be that the child wasn't born after 8 months of the second marriage, but you have to add another month, and it's 9 months at the end of the first marriage. So therefore, 1 month in between would be enough to determine the child that's born, where the child is from. So the Gemara says, no, not necessarily. Inami litmanya yolda. Even if this child would be born 8 months after the second marriage, it's still a possibility that this child comes from the second marriage. Very simple, because dilme ishtauye ishta chodesh echad v'yaber. Because maybe what happened was, they got married, but she didn't become pregnant immediately after the marriage. She became pregnant a month after the marriage, and she's born after 7 months, or the child it's born after 7 months, and it's really after 7 months of the second marriage. So we still don't know if it's from the first or second marriage. So waiting 1 month is not an option. Fragt the Gemara, how about if you wait 2.5 months, and then she gets married? And now this should be enough to determine where the child is from, as the Gemara explains. If the baby is born after 7 months after the second marriage, so then hai bar shiva lebasrahu. So then I know that it's a child that must have been born from 7 months after the second marriage. If the baby is born 6.5 months after the second marriage, so then that can't be. A child can't be born. The Gemara now is thinking that a child cannot be born by 6.5 months, and therefore I'll have to say, hi, bar tisha lekamahu. What happened was, add the 2.5 months to the 6.5 months, and it's from the first marriage. It's 9 months from the first marriage. So that should be enough to determine if it's from the first or the second marriage. The Ibar Basra, the Gemara now concludes and explains why. How do we know this? Because the Ibar Basrahu, if you would say that this child is born from the second marriage, a child cannot live if he's born after 6.5 months. So therefore, this is enough to determine where the child is from. So the Gemara says, no, that's not true. Even if a child is born after 6.5 months, we could still say that this child is born from the second marriage. Mazutra said, even the opinion that says that a woman that gives birth after 9 months, but it's not 8.5 months, for example, a woman cannot give birth. But a woman that gives birth 7 months, could give birth even if it's not full 7 months. And where do we bring it out from this? We see what happened by Shmuel. And it was in the time of Tkufais Hayamim, and we'll see what this means. Gemara here says, Miyot Tkufais. What does Tkufais mean? Beis. It's two tkufais, 2 periods, which refers over here to the pregnancy. The pregnancy is divided into 3 trimesters. So you have 6 months, 2 tkufais. So you have the 6 months. So that's the 2 tkufais. And then miyat yomim beis. When it says tkufais hayomim, so then there's another 2 days add to the 6 months. So therefore you see that a mother gives birth possibly after 6 months and 2 days. Right, so therefore, if you're going to wait 2.5 months, you're not going to say that if she gives birth after 6.5 months, that for sure it must be from the first marriage. No, could be a mother could give birth after 6.5 months. Frag the Gemara, but there's another eitzah here. Why do we have to make her wait so long? V'tamtin mashu. Let her wait much less. Rashi here says mashu would be like a week or 2 weeks, a short period of time. And then v'tinose, let her get married. And v'chimalu shleisha chadashim. And then when 3 months come, after 3 months of the marriage, let them come and inspect her to see. Let's see, check her body to see if she's already pregnant or not. All right, and so at that point, if she is, you'll know that it definitely comes from the first marriage, and you're going to inspect her after 3 months, and then you'll know from which marriage she's. Just a second. Because Rashi says, if it's from the second marriage, because it's not yet 3 months from the second marriage, so therefore you wouldn't be able to see any signs in her body that she's pregnant. But if it's from the first marriage, because 3 months passed, so therefore you would know then that she's definitely pregnant from the first marriage. So all you need is a short period of time, a week or 2, to be able to determine by inspecting her to know if she's pregnant from the first marriage or not. Says the Gemara, Omer Rav Safra. So Rav Safra says, no, we can't rely on this. Ein boitkin es anasuais. We don't go and inspect the body of a married woman to know about this. Shleis gano al balein. They shouldn't become disgraceful to their husband. Frag the Gemara, but there's a more tznius way to inspect her. V'nivdeka behilucha. Why can't we inspect to see her footsteps? This is also a way to see. Rashi here says, if she walks on soft earth and you see how heavy of a footstep it makes, a mark it makes in the ground, you can see if she's pregnant or not. So this is another way how to see. So why can't we rely on that? Amar Rami Bachame, so Rami Bachame says, Isha mechapa atzma, a woman will do anything to disguise the fact that she's pregnant from the first marriage. She wants us to think that she's pregnant from the second marriage, kideshi yirish bena benichse baila, so that her son that's born now should inherit the possessions of the second husband. So therefore we can't rely on this sign. She might not, she tries to hide this, so it's not something we can determine. So b'kitzur, we have to wait for 3 months. However, the question still is, how about in a case where we know for a fact that she is pregnant from the previous marriage? Tinase, so now she should be allowed to get married immediately. She's pregnant, we don't have to determine where the child is from, we know it's from the first marriage. So why did we learn in the Braisa? Person shouldn't marry a woman that was pregnant from his friend that she was married to, or she's nursing a baby from a previous marriage. If he went ahead and married her anyways, Yoitzi is to divorce her and never should get remarried to her again. So why would you not get married to her if she's for sure pregnant, so you don't have to determine where the child is from? Answers the Gemara, Shema Tasa Ubra Sandal. The concern is that maybe by her getting remarried and then having relations with her husband, that could cause the baby, the fetus, to become deformed. If that's a concern by the relations, it can cause the child to be deformed. Therefore, with a person's own wife, when she's pregnant, it should also not be allowed to have any relations. So it says the Gemara, Ilaman dama b'moich. So now, according to one opinion that says that during the time of pregnancy, so out of this concern, you don't want a second pregnancy to happen. So therefore, you can do the relations are with a moich, with some kind of a cloth to prevent pregnancies. So then it's done with a cloth. There's another opinion that says that the Eibishter has mercy, the Eibishter makes sure that nothing should go bad. So then the Eibishter will have mercy on this. So, but the question now is, here as well, if this woman is already pregnant from a previous marriage and now she wants to get remarried, according to the opinion that says you can place a cloth that you should not get pregnant, so you can do the same thing now and allow her to get remarried. The opinion that says that the Eibishter will have Rachmanis and you can rely on the Eibishter, so let her get remarried and we rely on Hashem. Elas, the Gemara says that over here the problem is Mishum Dochasa. Because when they have relations with one another, he may squeeze and crush the fetus and kill the baby. If that's really a concern, so then obviously ihachi didei nami, a person's own wife, you should have the same concern as well. So the Gemara says no, didei chayis ilave. If it's his own wife with his own child, his own baby, he has rachmanis and he makes sure not to crush the baby. If you're relying on that he has rachmanis not to kill this fetus, you should rely on the same thing also. Even if it's a pregnancy from a previous marriage, a person would not want to kill a fetus. So that can't be the issue that we're concerned about. Elo, so therefore the Gemara says another reason. Stamu beres liminika kaima. Usually a woman that gives birth, so she's going to give birth and then she's going to be nursing the baby. And now what's going to happen? What are we concerned about? Dilma I abra. Maybe she is pregnant, and then the point is Dilma I abra. Maybe if she's going to get remarried, so then she's going to become pregnant again after she gives birth, and then chalba. It ruins the quality. Once she's already pregnant again after she gives birth, so then the milk that she's nursing to her first baby gets ruined. She can't nurse the first baby. And the baby won't have what to eat, and the first baby can die. So that's why we don't want her to get remarried and to have a second pregnancy to allow the first baby to nurse and to have the milk that she needs. So says the Gemara, why don't we have the same concern regarding a person's wife after he gives birth? Should not be allowed to have relations with her and allow the mother to nurse the baby for all this time. Says the Gemara, if it's his own baby, he is going to make sure to give her to eat. He'll make sure to give the baby to eat. So we're not concerned that the baby will die. If so, if it's her baby that's born from a previous marriage, even if she gets pregnant again and now she has no milk to feed him, but still she's going to feed him eggs, milk, and other things. Says the Gemara, the husband is not going to, the new husband is not going to support her with this. It's not his baby. He's going to say, it's not my responsibility to support you with this baby that's born from a previous marriage. Why would she not go and demand the yarshim, the children of the previous marriage, that it's their responsibility to support her to feed this baby? So she can rely on that. Says the Gemara, Abaye says, Isha Baisha Lavila Bezdin. A woman is embarrassed to go and drag the yarshim of the previous marriage to come to Bezdin and argue with them, and her child will die because she's embarrassed to go and drag them to Bezdin. So B'kitzur, the conclusion of the whole Gemara over here is we don't want her to get remarried, even if she's pregnant already, because if she becomes pregnant again, she won't have milk, she won't have how to feed her children, and we can't rely on her dragging the inheritors of the first marriage to Bezdin, because she's embarrassed to do such a thing. Going back to the Mishnah, it said, Achas besulois v'achas be'ulois. So it actually said in the Mishnah a whole list, besulois and be'ulois, and then it said grushes and almonois, and then nesuois and arusois. In all of these cases, they can't get remarried until 3 months. So the Gemara wants to understand, this seems to be redundant here. Hai niu besulois v'hai niu arusais. Doesn't besulois and arusais mean the same thing? She's still a besula, she's still a virgin because she was never really married fully with this person. It was just an arusa. And hai niu be'ulais, hai niu nesuais. A be'ula, there were relations, is because there's a nesua, she's fully married already to him. So why does the Mishnah repeat these two things? Rabbi Yehuda, you're right, this is how you have to read the Mishnah. Hachi ka'ama, the Mishnah is saying as follows. Achas besulois va'achas be'ulois. Whether it's a besula or a be'ula, shenis armuloi, shenis garshu, that became an almana or got divorced. And how could it be a besula or a be'ula? So the Mishnah explains, bein min ha'edisin, bein min ha'nesuin. If it would be from Edisin, then she's a besula. If it's from Nisuin, then she's a be'ula. So it goes together. It's not two separate things. The Gemara says, Rabbi Lazar le'al lebei midrasha. It was one day Rabbi Lazar did not come to the Beis Medrash to learn. Ashkechei le'Ravasi. He found Ravasi. Omalei said to Ravasi, "My Omer Rabbanan bebei midrasha." What did the Rabbanan say in the shul this day? What did they learn? Omalei. So he said, "Hachi Omer Rabbi Yochanan." This is what Rabbi Yochanan said regarding this halacha here. Halacha ke Rabbi Yosi. The halacha is like Rabbi Yosi, which was the next Tana in the Mishnah. Rabbi Yosi said, the Tana Kam in our Mishnah said that in all these cases, as we just said here, cannot get married until 3 months later. Even if she's a basula from the first marriage, she never had relations with the first husband, so seemingly there's no concern about determining a child that's born if it's from the first or second marriage, but still the Tana Kam said in all cases, you can't get remarried for 3 months. But Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Yosi says that women that were only Edison, the first marriage was just an Edison, can get remarried afterwards, even before 3 months, besides an almana because of Evil. Okay, so this is Rabbi Yochanan said, we paskin like Rabbi Yosi. That's the halacha that was taught that day in the Beis Medrash. So the Gemara now explains, Miklal, this proves the Chida Polygale, that the Tana Kama that's brought in the Mishnah that argues in Rabbi Yosi, he's only a Yachid. Even though in the Mishnah it's not brought with the name, and you may think that it's the Rabbim, it's Chachamim that argued on Rabbi Yehuda or Rabbi Yosi, but if Rabbi Yochanan says the halacha is like Rabbi Yosi, it must be that the Tana Kama is only a Yachid. So the Gemara says, you're right, because Vatanya, and we can see this from what we learned in the Braisa, that there was a machlokes between two Tanaim. And that is, a woman that's constantly going back to her father's house, and we know that in the time when her husband passed away, she was not with her husband for a certain period of time already. She was angry at her husband, and we know she had no relations with her husband. Her husband was in prison. Her husband was old or sick. Or she was sick. Or she miscarried after her husband passed away. She was not able to give birth. She was old, Iktana, or underage, can't give birth. Islandness, also not able to give birth. And any other way that she can't give birth. As Rashi says, whether sickness or whatever other reason she can't give birth. So in all these cases, you may think that there's no reason to determine where the child is born from. Let her get remarried right away. Nevertheless, Chachamim said in all cases, we apply the gzeira that you have to wait 3 months. Divrei Rab Meir. This is Rab Meir's opinion. Rabbi Yehuda matter, but Rabbi Yehuda says, or others agree to say Rabbi Yosi, that it's allowed li'ores v'linosim miyad, are allowed to get married, whether edison, whether nisuin, immediately. So right here in this brayso, you can see that who is the Tana that argued, not the Chachamim, it was Rab Meir. It's a machlokes between Rab Meir and Rabbi Yehuda, or Rab Meir and Rabbi Yosi. So therefore, we pass like Rabbi Yosi because it's against another Tana, which is a Yachid. Rabbi Yochanan retracted though from this that he said that the halacha is like Rabbi Yosi. He then decided that the halacha is like the Tana Kama that says that we always apply the gezerah that they can't get remarried until 3 months. Rav Yosef, so Rav Yosef said about this, if it's true that Itaka retracted his opinion and we don't pass like Rav Yosi, what's the reason? We must nissen the karma hodarbe. Because of this braisa that we learned in the vineyard, and this is referring to the kerem beyavne, as the Gemara here brings in a moment, that in Yavne the Chachamim would sit in rows similar to a vineyard. That's so because of that brayse that was taught there. That's why you had charata. What does it say in that brayse? The Tanya over there we learned. I heard from Chachamim. So here it's not brought in the name of one Tana, Rab Meir, but all Chachamim said this. That all women, even in a case where it's not Roy, she's impossible for her to give birth from the first marriage. Nevertheless, Chachamim applied their gzeira in all cases, not to make any confusion. They applied it in all cases that you have to always wait 3 months. So here we see that it was the Chachamim that argued with Rabbi Yosi. Amalei Rabbi Yirmiyah Rabbi Zrika. Rabbi Yirmiyah said to Rabbi Zrika, Ki ailas lakamed Rabavo, when you come to Rabavo, Ramilei, so you should ask him the following: is it possible what we said in the beginning here, that Rabbi Yochanan said that halacha is like Rabbi Yosi, but for Rabbi Yochanan, there's a statement we had many times. Rabbi Yochanan said halacha kistam mishnah. We paskin like a Stam Mishnah, Utnan, and the Stam Mishnah says, Kol Hanoshim, all women, Lo Yunosu v'Lo Yisarsu, they should not get remarried, whether Nisuin or Edison, until there's 3 months to separate from the first and second marriage. And it said, Achas B'sulais, V'achas B'ulais, and there's no distinction. So how could he have said that he paskins like Rabbi Yossi against what it said in the Stam Mishnah, what the Tana Kama basically said? Amalei. So he answered him and said, the one that asked you this question, he's not concerned about when he grinds his flour to see that it should be good flour. In other words, the question he asked, he wasn't thinking about what he was saying. Why? Stam v'achakach machloikesi. Here it's taka. The Tana Kama is there's a Stam Mishnah. It has no name to it, but following it right afterwards is a machloikes, which is Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Yossi. Ve'ein halacha kestam. In such a case, when there's a stam of a Mishnah with no name, but then afterwards there's other opinions with a name that argue, in such a case, Rabbi Yehuda didn't say like that you paskin like the Stam Mishnah. Rav Papa said, V'teimer Rabbi Yehuda, or Rabbi Yehuda himself said, or Rabbi Yehuda said, Machloikes v'achakach stam. In a case where you have a Machloikes and then afterwards comes a Stam Mishnah, then halacha kestam. We pass like the Stam Mishnah. But if it's a Stam, first comes a Stam Mishnah, like here, you have this Tana Kama saying a halacha, v'achakach Machloikes, then comes other Tanoim that are arguing, ein halacha kestam. You don't pass like the Stam. So the Gemara now says a similar thing that regard on this subject. Mistamech v'ozl rabavo akasve de Rab Nachum Shamei. Rabavo was walking and he was leaning on Rab Nachum, his servant. So mankind v'azal hilchas minei. So Rab Nachum was learning and taking halachas from him. So b'yaminei, he asked Rabavo the question, Machloikis v'achakach stam mai. If you have a Mishnah, first comes a Machloikis and then following that comes a Stam opinion about the same subject. Who do we paskin like? Amalei halacha kestam. So in such a case we paskin like a Stam, like we just said. Stam v'achakach Machloikis. If first there's a Stam Mishnah, then there comes a Machloikis. Mai, what's the halacha then? Amalei ein halacha kestam. In such a case we don't paskin like a Stam. Then he asked him further, Stam de masnisen, if in a Mishnah this is brought as a Stam, then a Machloikis bebraise. In a braise you find there's a Machloikis about this. Mai, who do you paskin like then? Amalei halacha kestam. Then you do paskin like the Stam because in the Mishnah it's a Stam. Now he asked him further, Machloikis b'masnisen, what's if in a Mishnah this is brought as a Machloikis, istama bebraise, but then in a braise it's brought as a Stam without any argument, Mai, who do we paskin like? Or do we say over here that the Stam of the braise is stronger than the Machloikis of the Mishnah? Amalei, so Rabavo answered, V'chi Rebbe loishana, if Rebbe in the Mishnah did not teach it as a halacha Stam, Rebbe taught it as a Machloikis, Reb Chia minayin loy. From where would Reb Chia take to be able to teach it as a Stam Mishnah to know that this is the halacha? Reb Chia was Rebbe's Talmud. So if Rebbe didn't teach it as a Stam, so you can't rely on Reb Chia that teaches it as a Stam to paskin this way. This is a famous line in the Gemara because there's a Chassidish pshat in this Gemara. When it says here, Rebbe Leshon Reb Chia Minayin, the Chassidim used to teach regarding the importance to go to a Rebbe, especially on a Yom Tov, when even Al Pi Halacha, there's a din of Chayav Adam Lahakbol Pnei Rabbi Beregel, to go to a Rebbe on a Yom Tov, Rebbe Leshona, that if a person does not go to the Rebbe once a year, once in a while, to go to a Rebbe, Chia Minayin, like, from where does he have any life? With on a Rebbe, there's no source of life. That's this Vart over here, it's brought in Gemara a few times that Chassidim used to teach.